Hi, this is Jason Nickleby, Coordinator of Officials with the Minnesota State High School League, and this is basketball officiating training tape number 2. Thanks for your efforts last weekend, getting our season off the ground. Excited about the opportunities that we have moving forward, and keep working hard on mechanics, our rules knowledge. We kind of plopped right into the season, so we need to be ready to go with our study and our application and working together with different crewmates with less preparation at the site than we typically have. So again, appreciate your work and diligence on these items. So we'll take a look at a few more plays this week. Again, not picking on any one team or official or crew, just looking to improve our mechanics and positioning philosophy application on plays like these when we have them in our games this year. So with that, we'll take a look at some plays. On this play, let's talk about our mechanics and positioning, particularly at the lead, and not so much about judgment, but we'll talk a little bit about that, but mainly our positioning and mechanics. And if you see on this play, we have a ball that's thrown out to the wing right in front of the team bench, and then there's an immediate cut to the basket down the lane line with some contact near the block on that far side of the screen. You see that the lead is in the middle of a rotation at the time of this contact. And what I would say to leads is if the ball goes to the other side and settles, we should be closing down towards that lane line. And then if we feel that the ball is going to stay on that side of the court, that we're going to settle in and have play be dictated from there, then we should initiate a rotation and get to that other side so that we can mirror the basketball as the lead, because we want to mirror the basketball as the lead whenever possible. However, if we're reading the other players, what they're doing at this time, and we feel like there might be an immediate play at the basket, we don't want to initiate a rotation at that point because we're really going to be in no man's land if that's what we do. And that's kind of what happens here. We initiate a rotation, and while we're in the middle of the rotation, we have this immediate cut to the basket. So if you see this as the lead, this immediate cut, just stop where you are and officiate the play from there, particularly officiating the secondary defender. If you have a chance to take a step back from where you came to that lane line, that would be ideal. But otherwise, just stop, officiate the play. It's going to be better to officiate while you're stationary than it is to officiate while you're moving. If you decide to keep going like the lead does in this particular situation, if it's not involving a secondary defender, this is the center's play. It's a drive that initiates in the C's area, stays in the C's area the entire time. So if it doesn't involve a secondary defender, the center should take this play for that reason, and also because as the lead, we're on the move, so our accuracy on this type of a judgment call is not going to be as high. So we want to leave it with the C if possible. However, in this case, if you watch this play, you see that the primary defender gets beat. She gets to that secondary defender who tries to establish initial legal guarding position in the restricted area. There is contact, and she goes to the floor. Therefore, this is a restricted area blocking foul. Just a reminder on our mechanics when we're talking about restricted area plays. We should indicate that we're stopping the clock with a fist, signal a blocking foul, and point at the restricted area if we have a blocking foul just because the defender established initial legal guarding position in the restricted area. In this particular case, I think she gets there, establishes legal guarding position with 2 feet facing the opponent, and we're good there, except when she does that, she has a foot in the restricted area, which means when the contact occurs and she's still grounded in that restricted area, we have a restricted area blocking foul. Now, if you think this is a blocking foul all the way and it doesn't matter if the arc's there, then all you should do there is fist in the air, blocking signal, and that's it. If you have it as a blocking foul only because she is in the restricted area, then we should signal fist, blocking foul, and point at the restricted area. But make sure we slow down our mechanics. We don't want to have a fist in the air and the other arm signal a blocking foul while we're doing that. So they should be separate, distinct signals: fist in the air, block, and point at the restricted area. Or if you have a blocking foul only, fist, block, and that's it, and go to report. And then make sure we have some giddy up in our step to the reporting area. And also a reminder, make sure we go around players to go to the reporting area. Let's talk mechanics and positioning again on this play with the lead official. So we have a drive to the basket, right on the lane line nearest the team bench, and it's a one-on-one matchup with the primary defender. Stays in the center's area all the way to the basket, and we subsequently have a pushing foul called by the lead. So because this play originates in the C's coverage area, stays there, and is not involving a secondary defender, this play should be judged by the center official all the way. We shouldn't get involved in this play as the lead. When we're calling across the paint like this, our accuracy level goes way down. We're looking through players, across players. At a minimum, if we're going to take this play, which we really shouldn't, but if we're at a minimum, if we are, then we should take a step at an angle into the paint, not towards the paint, but at an angle away from the paint towards the middle, and be stationary and take the play. But again, this is a play in center's area, stays there all the way. So we should let the center call this play or no call this play. And if the coach is upset about it, let the center official explain why she chose to not have a whistle on this play. And outside of a punch or some non-basketball play, we shouldn't be involved in this play as the lead. And if we want to get involved in this play, then we need to rotate, but we're not going to rotate because she takes it right to the basket. So just a reminder to just really focus on our primary coverage area and trust our partners. Our partners are really good officials. They're capable of calling the plays in their area, so let's trust them. And if they no-call it, then they probably no-called it for a reason. So just something to keep in mind as leads. If we want to get involved in plays, then we have to get to that side of the court. Otherwise, we just have to trust our partner to take it. I think this is a play that could have been no-called. Hard to tell from this particular view whether it's a good call or bad call, but really just from a coverage area, we really should trust our partners. Let the center take this play all the way to the basket. On this play, we are going to have a dribble drive nearest the team bench, right at the basket, pretty big collision, and we have a player control foul called by the lead and the center. So let's take a look at our mechanics, talk about the rules as it pertains to this play. So we have a dribble drive that originates in the C's area and goes right at the basket. Okay, so typically this would be center's play. However, in this particular case, we have a secondary defender involved. Remember, if they establish initial legal guarding position outside of the restricted area, then we have a player control foul, assuming that she maintains legal guarding position legally by moving backwards, straight in the air, or obliquely. So in this particular case, I believe that the secondary defender establishes legal guarding position outside the restricted area. So she's there prior to her leaving the ground, contact through the torso. This is enough for a player control foul, and this is properly called. Just a couple things of note. One, this is going to be the lead's play to judge on restricted area or block player control foul involving contact against the secondary defender, assuming that the secondary defender establishes legal guarding position in the area of the paint. If they establish legal guarding position outside of the paint, outside of that lane line, and there's significant contact, then this would be C's play because it's not really an arc play at that point. It's just a block charge that originates in the center's area and stays there. In this particular case, it is a dribble drive that originates in the C's area but subsequently results in contact with the secondary defender that establishes legal guarding position outside of the restricted area but still in the paint. So this is Lead's primary play. I like that we put a fist in the air. We confirm with eye contact with our partner before signaling offensive foul. So this is well done. We're in a good spot to view this play. We're stationary at the time of contact. Good mechanics and very good judgment. So this is a well-handled play by the crew. C as a whistle, that's okay in a play like this when it originates in the C's area, but when it involves a secondary defender, we'll let the league take it, which is what happens here. So this is well done mechanically and judgment-wise. On this play, I want to talk about some considerations we should have for judging legal defenders, and make sure we take a look at legal guarding position, other guarding rules, illegal contact, when legal guarding position is lost, etc. As well as what it truly means to armbar a dribbler, a knee into the dribbler that's affecting their rhythm, speed, balance, quickness, those kinds of pieces. That's when we're looking, at a defensive foul in cases like this. But let's take a look at this play. We have a dribble drive against a primary defender. Okay, this is right in front of the center. It's the center's play all the way, and they get to judge whether the contact is enough for a foul, legal or illegal, and what we're doing with it. So I just want to point out on this play when we're talking about an arm bar and whether that's illegal or not, if the defender puts an arm bar on the dribbler and redirects her in a direction that she doesn't want to go, by extending the arm, pushing the arm into the dribbler, that would be enough for a foul. Just merely having an arm on the dribbler is not necessarily a foul if the offensive player is the one that creates the contact. So if you dribble into a defensive player who has legal guarding position and they put up an arm bar to brace for contact, that is a legal play. This is not putting an arm bar into the back of a player in the post. This is bracing for contact while maintaining legal guarding position, which we can do by moving backwards, moving obliquely, jumping straight in the air. So when an offensive player like this initiates contact into a defensive player, unless she gets her head and shoulders past the defender's torso, which I don't believe happens here, or we have an arm bar where she redirects her, which I also don't believe happens here, we shouldn't have a defensive foul in this play. And if anything, there's a potential push-off on the offensive player, which I could support, but I think this play is better left off as a no call, and I think you can justify that by there is no redirect, there is no effect on the rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness of the offensive player. The defensive player maintains legal guarding position and does so throughout the play. So we should try to reward good defense by not putting a foul when we have legal defense like this, based on the view that we see. So just some things to consider when we're judging legal guarding position, arm bars, and contact with the dribbler. This play is a good illustration of when it's important to understand team control, individual control, how that affects violations, whether we're going to shoot free throws or not, those kinds of things. So on this particular play, we have a shot attempt. There's a subsequent scramble for the rebound. We're in good position to view all of this. Doesn't look like there's any fouls. Subsequently, the offensive team player gets a pretty secure rebound and then attempts to pass it out to her teammate out near center court and completely misses her, throws it into the backcourt where it's recovered by the offensive team, and we have no call. We allow it to play on. This should be a backcourt violation on the offense, and that's because we have team control in the front court reestablished when that offensive rebound is clearly controlled by the offensive team, and then we subsequently have a controlled pass. Therefore, if the offensive team is the first to touch in the backcourt, we should have a backcourt violation on this play. Now, a little wrinkle in this is, had we had the ball tapped around on the offensive rebound, no one gets it. It subsequently gets tapped out into the backcourt and subsequently recovered by the offensive team. That would not be a backcourt violation, because when we have a shot attempt, control is relinquished by that team, which is why when you throw the ball up in the air and you chase it down and catch a shot attempt, that's why that doesn't hit the rim. That's why it's not traveling, because you can't travel if you don't have control, and you lose that control when you shoot the basketball. So if we shoot it and it bounces off the rim, a bunch of hands, ends up in the backcourt, and the offensive team or the original offensive team gets the ball first, not a violation. In this case, the offensive team gains clear control in the front court, throws a pass, a controlled pass. They are the first to touch in the backcourt, so this should be a backcourt violation that we would want called. And so we want to know team control, individual control, when it's lost, so that we can explain calls like these when we do have them in our game. On this play, let's talk about last second shot mechanics and philosophies in handling these kinds of plays. And as a crew, we don't talk about last second shot mechanics as often as we should. And maybe we could go several games, many games, without having to handle a last second shot situation. But when they come up, and if we don't discuss it, it really can burn us. And I've been burned in situations where we didn't discuss last second shot mechanics, or the expectations weren't really clear for the crew what we were going to do. So let's take a look at this play and think about some options for handling last second shot mechanics. So we have about 10 seconds or so at the time this play starts, and the player drives to the basket on the lane line nearest the team bench. We have the trail opposite with the lead opposite the bench and the C on that side. And remember that whoever we have on that front court side as the trail or center opposite table is going to be the one that is the primary ruling official on whether the last second shot is going to count. Of course, other officials on the court can provide information if they have it, but the primary call needs to come from the trail or center opposite. We recommend that you lock in the center with about 15 to 20 seconds to go in the possession, and the center should work at their typical position, maybe a step lower. It's okay for the trail to work lower as well. If we have two C's and not two trails, that's totally fine. And then the lead can just go back and forth. If the ball settles on one side, then the lead can go to the other side. If it goes back, then the lead should go back. But the center is going to stay in their spot, opposite table. Lead will go back and forth. And if we have a transition or turnover like we do in this play, as you see here, then that trail on the table side would become the new lead. The lead would fill in at trail, coming back to table side if they have to. And the center would have last second shot anywhere on the court. And in this particular situation, the shot attempt is clearly released after LED lights are on the backboard, the horn goes off, etc. But what happens if this particular play is a lot tighter? That means that the new trail is now going to be responsible for ruling on last second shot on the other side of the court, and it's more than 70 feet away. It's in cases like this one that we recommend the C be locked in with 15 to 20 seconds to go in the front court possession. That way, if you have a turnover like this, they're going to have a much better chance of ruling on this play and getting it correct than the new trail would have to get 70 feet or more to get in position to view this last second shot. Another thing to consider is if you lock in the C and the ball goes out of bounds for a throw-in on the center side, even though the lead is going to now be on that side of the court and the center is going to be administering the free throw, they are still going to be the center. Okay, so right off the throw-in, they are going to be the center. That way, if the pass off the throw-in is picked off and we're going the other way, that official is still the center, even though they just administered the free throw in, or the throw-in rather, from what is a typical trail position. So make sure you communicate that part as well. I've been burned on that. Locked in the C, but then we had a throw-in. We thought that the C was now the trail, had a turnover, big collision at the basket, and we had no foul and no idea if the basket was good or not. So just another recommendation on locking in that C opposite and letting the lead go back and forth and then fill if we go back in transition or have a turnover. And then the final piece here is make sure you communicate on the floor who's got last second shot, so that we're all on the same page if that situation occurs. And when we have these situations, it's obvious when crews have communicated and pre-gamed this, and that's going to be critical this year to do it in a different way, in advance, via phone call, etc. But make sure you communicate on the court. I've got it. That way, we don't have issues when we have a really tight last second shot. So realize that's a lot of information, but we got to make sure we communicate, make sure we understand what our fellow crewmates are doing, and finally our recommendation is locking in the C opposite with about 15 to 20 seconds to go. Lead can fill if we go back the other way. On this play, I want to talk about primary coverage areas and legal guarding position, maintaining that in a legal context. So on this play, you see we have a play coming across the center court line, and the ball handler is going to take the ball right to the basket, right down the middle of the paint. And remember on our primary coverage areas that once we get into the paint area, past the free throw line, that the paint is divided up evenly amongst the lead and the center, unless it's involving a secondary defender type play where we're wondering if it's going to be a block charge in the restricted area. In that case, it is the lead's primary coverage area. But this particular play, it is a secondary defender, but they're significantly away from the restricted area. Therefore, this becomes a kind of a tweener play where it's between the lead and the center official. And in this particular case, because the center is looking between the players, is looking at space, and the lead has to look at the rear end of the defender, I would say the best person to cover this play is the center official, and we should let the center decide if this is going to be a foul or rises to that level. And remember, if they establish legal guarding position by having 2 feet on the floor facing the opponent, after that they can maintain it legally by moving backwards, moving obliquely, or rising vertically in their plane to challenge a shot. Or to play vertical defense. And I think that's what you see here. The ball handler takes it right at the secondary defender at the top of the paint there. She rises vertically to make a defensive play, and we have a foul subsequently on this play that comes from trail. And trail, once this ball handler goes away from you like this into the paint, you need to relinquish this play to the center or possibly the lead. But in this particular play, this is the C's play to call or no call. It's their primary coverage area. They have the best possible vantage point looking between players. And the center no calls this play, and I think rightfully so. And it's hard to explain when we come from a distance like this at trail and put air in the whistle on a play like this. So remember our primary coverage areas, trust our partners, let them make the calls or no calls in their particular area of coverage, and I think we're going to be in really good shape as we move forward. On this last play, I'd like to talk about our coverage and mechanics on a play like this where we have a drive from one primary coverage area to another. So in this particular play, the ball has settled on the trail's side nearest the bench. The lead is mirroring the ball as we would like, so the lead's in really good position. Trail we'd like a little bit lower, near the 28-foot mark if possible. Center's in a good spot at the free throw line extended, and then we have a drive across the paint and a subsequent shooting foul. So when we have a drive like this going away from the trail or the center, depending on where it's coming from, if it makes it all the way across the middle of the paint, that line down the middle of the paint to the other side of the floor, then it's now that official's primary coverage area. So it's going away from the trail. If the foul or the contact occurs on the near side of the lane, then we're talking about the lead's primary with trail assistance. If it makes it all the way to the other side of the paint, as it does here before the contact occurs, and the contact occurs right above the block nearest the center, this is now the center's primary coverage area, and the center puts air in the whistle, properly so, gives the shooter 2 shots. So this is well done, good judgment, good patience, proper mechanics at the spot, steps towards the play. So like all of that, that's all good. But just leads maybe a little bit more patient. Let the C take this play if possible, because it is in their primary coverage area, and I'm glad we have a whistle here. Double whistles are going to happen. We will have them in games, but we want to limit them when they are clearly in another official's primary area. So if the contact or something that needs to be ruled on is in another official's primary, we need to for sure let them have that first opportunity to get it. So well done by the center official here, allowing this play to develop into their area, ruling on the contact, nice, cool, calm, collected, good mechanics at the spot, and well done closing down towards the play. So good mechanics, good judgment on this play by the center. Okay, that will do it for basketball officiating training tape number 2. Several plays, lots to think about, go over with our crews, and hash out. We're doing a great job with a tough season. Appreciate your work and diligence. Stay safe and healthy out there. We need you for the long haul, so keep up the great work, and we will connect with you all next week.